discuss or to think about it while we wait. In the morning session, in one of the morning sessions, there was a presentation on estimating the macroeconomic rebound effect for the US. And the figures turned out to be consistently around 100%, which means energy efficiency policy would be totally useless. It's a new model type. I think it's a thorough, solid work. David Stern and others have been doing it, and 100% rebound. So what does that tell us? Think about it while we struggle with the technology here. Or did you know that most of our beliefs are formed at the age between 18 and 25? So how much do we change our habits, our beliefs, our attitudes as we get older? I think he has to do it from the back, right?
I do not need the laptop over here. I take it to the back. I do not need the laptop.
No?
No.
Okay. Then I will try from here upstairs. And if it starts working, we will see.
So we just start talking, yeah. Okay, we have to improvise. Christina will try to do without the slides, and the technician will try to get them on the screen as she starts her presentation. So apologies for this mishap. Good luck.
So sorry for this. I try to give some time back in not speaking more fast, but kind of focusing on the most major points of my presentation. So that is on E.ON's marketing strategy and our view of the energy consumer. And although I'm not a scientist, but a business person, having been with E.ON for 26 years now, I will show you that some of the topics that Anna and Marilyn have been mentioning before can be proved in practice if you go into business and look into how consumers behave. As you might be aware, E.ON is focusing on three major business areas. This is renewable production, this is network business, and that is customer solutions. Customer solutions is sale of energy and electricity and gas, but it is also our way of stepping into new areas in adding something that is physical, that is PV and storage, for instance, that is e-mobility and charging infrastructure, or that might be heating or home energy management systems. As we know, and that we are facing decreasing average consumption per household, and we see actually a potential of growing our business into going beyond this being a utility and selling pure electricity or gas. What we promise to our customers is something that we link closely to the E.ON brand. That is providing brilliant experiences. That means delivering in a very reliable way. We know actually that reliability is something that people value when choosing a provider like E.ON, a big one. It is also about service and building trust. Then it is E.ON offers me more brilliant experiences. E.ON offers me more, pretty much into price-value perception. So we know that price-value perception is one of the major drivers for customers being loyal with their energy supplier. And we know that up to 25% would state that price-value, not price, but price-value perception is that major driver. And that it is not price that actually, I could confirm your theory actually, Anna. People even do not know how much they pay for a kilowatt hour, but it's something. But we'd like to offer more and being this kind of utility to acknowledge that. And the third and last one of our brand pillars is smarter, sustainable solutions. It's going into green. It is offering a smart and sustainable solution for the household or for a business. That is a way into the future. We'd like actually to combine this brand assets with customer experience, and as I'm heading the customer insight, market insights function, for me it's pretty much about understanding the customer and creating these customer insights on the back of our customers being in touch with us. But to be honest, and if you look into the kind of relationship that people have with dealing with their energy supplier, nobody's really interested in doing that. So we know that in average we have less than one contact point with a customer per year, and most of these contact points are if you get a bill and that is not right, or you have to phone into the customer service, have long waiting times or so. So it's not a very so it's mostly negative that you've got these touch points. What we know from research is that an average person in Germany will spend 7 minutes with thinking or dealing with their energy provider, 7 minutes a year. That is average. And if you would ask consumers whether they would like to have more or less, they would say, I would be interested to even spend less time with my energy provider. So that makes it for us actually, it does not move. Oh, this is the old one. But let's stay with this one. But this is actually what makes it for us especially difficult to get in touch and to understand more about customer behavior when being a customer of an electricity company. And we actually understood that we have to change from that kind of technical, engineer-like view on our customer base, but really understand people and understand their life, understand trigger points. And we did some major research on people living at home, for instance, understanding what actually matters to them, what is it that creates emotions, and where is it that we could really put our products beyond electricity and being seen as a provider for those. And that changed quite a lot, not only in research, but also in the attitude and in our way of being customer-centric or trying to become customer-centric. This is what I said, actually. It's understanding the life of the customer, understanding the trigger points. So there's quite a lot of time in life that you are not dealing with households, with home building, but understanding these trigger points. So having a first flat, moving out, having a construction site, building a house, getting the first child, children moving out of the household. These are the trigger points actually where we try to focus and to add value at those. We realized, for instance, that deciding to install a PV panel on the roof or a PV and storage solution is something that older people are because they're going to invest into their estate because their children moved out and they're preparing for the last period of their life, and that is a perfect moment to address those consumers actually. So this is one of my favorite pictures because this is our customer family, and it's not only a nice picture, but this is based on more than 30 studies that we did, quantitative and qualitative ones, creating these customer types. The middle is our Helga. They have names. So Helga is kind of presenting up to 60 to 70% of our customer base. These customer types are actually described in their attitude towards an energy provider. So Helga is not interested in dealing with electricity. She's a little bit afraid of doing something wrong, but she wants to be recognized when she phones in. She wants to be recognized. She wants to be seen as an individual, but she's not interested in details. She will follow and trust this supplier, and even sometimes she feels a little bit guilty of not changing supplier, for instance. So she's the major consumer type that we see, especially in Germany. This was based on German research, but we can see similar in other countries as well. This one with the lack of hair, his name is Frank. He would be somebody to be interested in Anna's pricing studies, because he's the one to kind of live in Excel. So he's interested in details. He would read everything in terms and conditions. He would be the one to really go for smart meter, but this is only 5% of our consumer base who are really interested in this kind of details and figures around that. Helga could be not only this kind of 60-year-old or 50-year-old woman, she could be a 23-year-old student as well. So it's not about them being a persona, but these are customer types. Interestingly, this Nadine with the pink cardigan, she used to be a Helga as well. And then something happened, kind of a wrong bill or something, a high payment she has to give to us. So she's kind of insecure. She wants to feel and get into Helga status again. So treating her in a way to reassuring actually and making things to kind of feel safe again, that would be the main part for dealing with Nadine. Barbara, the blonde one, she's actually a growing group of customers. Very focused on, not interested in energy, but looking at the best deal, being really somebody comparing their energy provider with a Amazon or whatever business, and having the same standard actually and expectations that are set in other industries that she's applying to service and to everything she's getting from her energy supplier utility. And then we've got the person with the brown jacket, that his name is Manfred. He's a little bit more demographic, actually. He's a person who's not able to pay or kind of not having enough budget to meet all the requirements paying for electricity. And based on these kind of types that we've created, we've managed to develop certain programs, develop our strategy and business models actually based on those. So for instance, bringing home energy management systems into mainstream and guiding a Helga type person into that world would be something that E.ON is going for. We would not go for the kind of freaky, techie population to be the front runners, but we would be the one with our kind of role and to guide Helga into this world. And there's where we see actually a potential for us to grow a business in understanding these customers and building on that, based on that understanding. There is one quantitative part that I would like to share with you. That was something that we did last year. That was a first cross-regional segmentation that is needs-based or behavior-based that we conducted in all 7 markets where we are operating in Europe. The setup was that we managed to have 14,000 interviews, 2,000 per region, to really come up with a need-based segmentation. And that was something we had the assumption to come up with 4 different types, but we managed to have 6 types of consumers which we could proper describe and differentiate actually. So I'm just going to switch here. So as you see in front of you, there's the one called without effort. is not interested in dealing with topics. We have the person with informed choice, that is similar to the frank customer type. We have time pressed, who would actually be interested in comparing, but are living in circumstances that do not allow that from a time perspective. We've got eco-first with about 16% across Europe. It was only Hungary that had less, actually. Even UK, where we thought it would be a lower percentage of being eco-first, people was in the same percentage range. And we've got personal comfort, those who are not looking for the cent or for the penny, but looking into getting the comfort they would look for. And we've saved money for those who are not able to pay and who have to look at the budget. This is an example of how this description of the segment looks like and how we are working with this. This is also something we use actually for developing new products and kind of creating personas on the back of that to help those people who are working in product management or in those areas actually to find the right ideas, to understand the customer, as I said before, understand the trigger points, the customer life, and the way how to develop these products actually into and bring them to market. It's a little bit about a surprise because this is an old version of the presentation. This is about how we try to leverage data. So we are at the beginning only. We try to create a kind of 360-degree view of the customer, which we manage with structured data. We have quite a lot of data around usage, around payment and all that stuff. We do not know the specific person behind the meter. So, because we're serving the whole population, so it's not kind of us focusing on the younger ones or on the retired or whatever. As an energy provider, we are serving everyone. So we do not know enough about the person itself, but about the behavior and usage, we know quite a lot. We are struggling, to be honest, with the smart meter data, not because of not having it, but really finding the business model and the really meeting customer needs with these data. So knowing that the refrigerator is using more than other stuff, that is something you can tell people, but it will not make them buy a new refrigerator. And they will not buy that refrigerator with E.ON anyway. So we are really struggling. So I have some discussions with people from the network side who say, yeah, you just have to find the right business model and then you can market the data. I have some doubts actually in using it, and we so far did not manage to find the right business model on working with a smart meter. Actually, we did some research on nudging. We had a test with the RWI in Essen on treating people with communication on energy efficiency. That was one on kind of more into the green. The other was more cost-saving focused, with 4 really nice letters communicating, asking, and we could not see any effect on consumption, but we could see another effect. It was actually seen as a kind of hygiene factor from getting these letters from E.ON. So we could see that in comparison to a control group, and it was 40,000 each, so it was quite a good proportion of customers, the churn rates dropped actually. Having this kind of conversation and having a partner who's giving that advice was seen as something gluing those customers to the company. And we did something with O-Power. We spent quite a lot of money for O-Power and introduced it in our UK business, but we could not see any longer or sustainable effects on using, and we did some first kind of, people were interested and went for it, but we decided not to go with O-Power further. So that was actually this. And one last sentence on price. When I listened to your presentation, Anna, it is as I said, people do not know what they pay for kilowatt hour. If you ask people in Germany, for instance, what are you paying for electricity, they would tell you, I'm pay 50 euros or 80 euros per month. And what we did actually, we had these monthly payments, we had 11 per year, just of efficiency on our side. So we increased kind of artificially this monthly price. So as only having 11 monthly payments per year instead of 12, people thought, oh, E.ON is much more expensive than others. So we changed this because it was just the feeling of what is the price actually. It was nothing about the price itself. Sorry for that inconvenience with my slides. So it went kind of in another way than I had planned it, but I hope you enjoyed it anyway.
Great talent in improvising. Thanks, Christina. This was challenging. I would like to ask the three ladies quickly on the podium. We have 15 minutes left, and I would just like to start with two linked questions, one round among the panelists, and then open up for the general discussion. I hope the microphone's working, and we have another one then for the room. Maybe I start with Christina, and then we go in sequence. The question is, what's the ideal level of segmentation about customers or consumers? You mentioned you collect a lot of data, but you don't know who it is behind the meter, and then you end up with a segmentation, maybe 7 customer groups. What's the ideal level of segmentation for the longer run? And the second question, do you believe in nudging as an instrument in business, a non-price instrument? Nudging can be used in policy, but also in business. What's your opinion about it?
First, to the segmentation piece. I was struggling for quite a while with those consultancies like McKinsey or BCG who came into the business and said, okay, you have to segment. You have to segment according to value, you have to segment to whatever. And as I said before, it is us serving everybody in the population, almost in all markets. It is not about this kind of, we are only serving those who can pay or not, because we have the obligation also to serve those who can't pay, but help them to do that actually. So I do not believe in that. I strongly believe in understanding these segments, these need-based, or will help us as a business to find the better products and to really focus our communication and our go-to-market for specific segments beyond electricity. So if it comes to PV and battery, if it comes to e-mobility or home energy management systems, I strongly believe in that. And to your nudging point, I spoke before, I think from a business perspective, this kind of being in a proper communication cycle with your customer base will help you anyway in being seen as a trusted partner and building this kind of loyalty which we are lacking actually, because you have this kind of product which you can change without having quality or whatever issues.
Okay. Anna, what's your opinion?
On what?
On these two questions. Effectiveness of nudging policy and how much differentiation you would like to have when you analyze residential households, for example.
So one comment that I have about nudging is that a lot of people out there really believe that it's going to be the way to do things, for decisions in which consumers are not really the best decision makers for themselves. So and I do believe in a paternalistic government, type of, proactive behavior on this end. I do find myself wondering whether we want to reserve nudging for stuff that really has a major impact on people's lives. So we're talking about, decisions to be made about retirement plans, enrolling your child in a certain school versus another, vaccination, which is an issue in the United States. And whether it's really important to have it in energy where the gains are probably relatively limited. So that's a question that I have. I don't have a good answer for you and for the audience, but I find myself wondering that. As to the ideal level of segmentation, I was really struck by your presentation. I know that I had seen it in advance, of course, but I was really struck by the fact that you have this kind of, 6 different groups of people. And the proportion, the share that they represent of the total is really roughly the same. It ranges from, 14 to 18%, which to me is really the same number. So in terms of encouraging energy efficiency decisions and encouraging people to, to make choices that are really important for reducing emissions and avoiding all of the externalities associated with excessive consumption, I'm not sure. I really don't know what the best segmentation is. Maybe the person the person with the Excel spreadsheet. Well, how much does he really save? I mean, he may have all of the spreadsheets in the world, and still maybe he doesn't save as much as somebody who could be guided, by you or by someone else towards making, good decisions. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. Marilyn, does nudging work with conservative voters? There has been research done in the U.S.
I'll get to that in a sec. Christina, what was the last segment's fellow's name? Manfred. Okay. So I have spent a lot of time studying Manfred in the United States, and in particular in cities, and looking at the issue of energy burden and the role of energy efficiency, and trying to reduce the expenditures that poor households are saddled with. It's actually not just energy, it's also water and health and everything else. But for energy, the way that we run most of our energy efficiency programs in the U.S. is through utility companies, right? And so it has to be seen as a cost-effective expenditure of ratepayer resources to be justified in a regulated utility frame like I operate in. So we cannot figure a way that, what was his name again? Manfred, sorry. There is possibly no way that you can promote energy efficiency in a cost-effective way to Manfred. We have concluded in working with the Southern Company, one of the largest investor-owned utilities in the U.S., that they have got to engage in philanthropy, because when you're only earning so much, or maybe nothing at all, and entirely supported by the government, so then you need to figure out anyway how you get them involved in the philanthropically paid for programs, which is also not easy. So they tend to not be well educated and not be very well connected. You have to go through religious organizations and other social groups that have their trust, and you have to communicate in person through people that they can talk with. So it's very different. I fully endorse your idea of segmentation. The conservative, that's another subject, maybe for drinks tonight after dinner.
Okay, we'll do that. We're both interested in energy policy, especially the journal. I'll open up now to the floor, and we have a few more minutes, so please keep your questions short, and I would also ask the panelists to give short answers. Who wants to start? I'm not throwing the microphone, I have to.
My name is Werner Hediger from Switzerland. Anna, if prices don't count, in your different studies you've been looking at, did you do a meta-analysis to find a real robust answer to that, or do they count more? And second question to all, and maybe to the end of the discussion, if prices don't count, and we have been talking about market design this morning, there are two sides. The one is presented here, the consumers, the others have been presented in another panel, the producers. So how can we learn from your research and insights for market design? I guess that's missed and has been missed in the debate this morning.
Should I answer? Is this on? Yes. Yes, it's on. So, hi, Werner. I knew that your question was for me. So the first question was if I've done any meta-analysis of some of the stuff that I presented. And the answer is yes, although it was not a meta-regression. So I've looked at a number. I'm very interested in price elasticities, in part because I'm so skeptical that people really understand the price that they pay. I'm one of them, by the way. I study my electricity bills and I still don't know what price I pay, and I go through them in excruciating detail. I do know how much I consume, however, more on that later. So I've done some informal meta-analysis, and so my conclusion from looking at the literature and from writing papers that I published in Energy Policy, among other places, my conclusion is that there's a lot of numbers out there. So there's a lot of people that find a strong elasticity, price elasticity of electricity demand, for example. There's a lot of people that find very limited elasticity. So we're talking about the relatively inelastic demand. I tend to belong in the group that believes in relatively inelastic demand from my own experience. I also know, however, that there's so many factors that are influencing the specific elasticity that you're getting from any particular study. So when the study was done, what kind of data it uses? Are they micro data, macro data, regional data? Were the prices going up or down in that particular period? How much is really the variability that you get in the prices for you to be able to estimate the demand function? I've actually done some games in which I started from a micro data set and I aggregated the data up to a very large, regional level, just to see what difference it would make. It turns out that in my particular data, it was making the demand function more rigid, less elastic, more inelastic. So there's a lot of stuff out there that is going on. And although my personal belief is that really the demand is not very elastic, then you do find some instances where it is. Your other question, I tried to write it, and now I cannot read my handwriting. Great.
Prices don't count?
Prices don't count, market design.
Prices don't count. Is that what you said?
Okay. That's what I wrote down.
Okay, so sorry.
I repeat it. If prices don't count, and we had a discussion about market design. Market design is about how to bring the prices also included in the markets. So what does this imply for market design? Non-pricing mechanisms, or not? Maybe I'm wrong.
Yes and no. I do believe that a lot of non-price mechanisms are actually probably going to be lost to the consumers because people are going to be forgetting about all of these continuous reminders from O-Power or from someone else. I do think that you really need to put a lot of concentrated effort on that and keep it going for a long time to see something relatively small, not to see a big change. What I do believe that people respond to is not the price per kilowatt hour, but the total size of their bill. So when when there was a price increase, for example, and your bill goes up even if you don't change your behavior, you're going to go, oh my God, what have I done this month? And then you're going to try to cut down. So people have an intuitive type of response, but I don't think it's related to the price per kilowatt hour, rather to the total size of the bill.
Okay, thanks, Anna. We had a question and a microphone.
So in terms of prices, in the regulatory arena in the US, there is an extreme focus on reducing electricity prices to consumers, especially households. We also know, though, that electricity rates for the industrial and commercial sectors do drive decisions that that can significantly influence the influx of new companies into your territory. So the growth of your market is going to be a function of how competitive your rates are relative to your neighbors or other parts of the country. I have always thought that it needs to be, the focus should be on energy bills and not energy rates. Because in order to promote efficiency, you need to run programs that cost money, and the way you recover those costs is by raising rates. If you focus only on prices and rates, then you're never going to invest in programs that require ratepayer expenditures. And anyway, there's a lot more to that subject, of course.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm Nina Polis from Delft University of Technology. The focus here on this talk was largely on households. I think Marilyn Brown mentioned briefly at the very end that there is very little research on programs or energy efficiency for non-households. well, for companies, for non-household energy users. So my question maybe was, what do you see as a way forward, also maybe both academia and industry, towards maybe also developing programs for non-household energy users? I would think that's important in the whole energy transition story, but what would your opinions be on that?
You go ahead. Yeah.
So for us, it's actually B2B, one of the areas where we see the largest growth potential. Because not only of being cost efficient or energy efficient, but also having a demand from their consumer base in being sustainable, as you mentioned before. So we see actually industries or companies reaching out to us to get sustainable green energy delivery and programs of producing their own energy and all that stuff. And we as E.ON see a large growth potential in that.
So maybe I'll just add a couple of things here. So first of all, at least in the US, I'm aware of some programs, some energy efficiency programs that are targeted to commercial and industrial entities. I know that the state of Maryland, for example, has something called Empower Maryland, and their goal is to reduce electricity consumption, and they do have a number of offerings, not just for residential customers, but also for this other type, the commercial and industrial. I know that I had access to a very, very small sample of data from this, and so I didn't find that was conducive to a good research project with solid evidence. I also would like to point out, and I'm saying this as a person who's serving on the Statistical Advisory Committee for the Energy Information Agency, but the Energy Information Agency does collect extensive data from commercial and industrial buildings and entities. The problem with that survey, which is really well done and really well taken care of, is that it has such a variety of entities, ranging from hospitals, schools, office buildings, manufacturing plants, that it's very, very difficult to do a proper analysis out of it, an easy, or at least, one in which you can come to conclusions quickly. So just to give you a heads up in case you're interested in taking up this matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Anna, I think that the availability of data is the challenge when it comes to industrial and commercial customers. Of course, industrial customers typically want to opt out of all energy efficiency. They'd rather do it themselves. They don't want to share the industrial process detailed information with their competitors. For commercial businesses, I think that the energy benchmarking data that's now being released across the states and cities that are requiring in the US that every building release its energy consumption will be a very good data bank for some analysis, because you can crosswalk with other characteristics from other places about those buildings. And I've done 2 publications this year with machine learning and trying to use data to develop characteristics of types of commercial buildings. So you train your equations from data where you have consumption and all the other characteristics, and then you apply those predictions to areas where you don't know the energy consumption because it's not publicly available. And you get a pretty nice way to go. I mean, that's not a very satisfying type of study for economists. That's just asking where's the energy being consumed. But I do suggest some of these energy benchmarking cities might be a good place to start for commercial businesses.
Okay.
New York City, San Francisco, Boston, Atlanta. Yeah.
My Swiss watch says time is up. I apologize that we wasted a few minutes with the technology here. I would like to give a hand, and please help me, to the 3 speakers. I hope you enjoyed this dual plenary on the consumer behavior and enjoyed the rest of the conference. Thanks a lot. Session closed.
Well, likewise.